The day my mother-in-law kicked me out and my husband called me dead weight. They had no idea I still owned the company they thought I lost and the beach house they'd been secretly planning to steal. As I packed my belongings while they laughed from the kitchen, counting money that wasn't theirs yet, I made a silent promise they'd learn exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman who built everything from nothing. The papers in my locked drawer would change everything, but first, I'd let them think they'd won. My name is Emma Carlisle, and at 34 years old, I never imagined I'd be standing in my own driveway in Portwell, Florida, watching my entire life get thrown into garbage bags. The text from Carla, my mother-in-law, still burned on my phone screen. "Pack your things and get out. We don't need failures in this family." The humid Florida air clung to my skin as I loaded another box into my car. Mrs. Henderson from next door pretended to water her already drenched petunias, her eyes glued to the spectacle. Across the street, the Johnsons had given up all pretense and were openly staring from their porch swing. "Sophie, sweetie, help Mommy with this box." I called to my 9-year-old daughter, trying to keep my voice steady. She stood frozen on the front steps, her favorite stuffed dolphin clutched against her chest. That's when Ethan emerged from the house, his cologne preceding him like always. My husband of 11 years looked at me with the same expression he'd use for something stuck to his shoe. "You're really doing this?" He laughed, that cruel sound I'd been hearing more often lately. "Running away like the dead weight you are." Dead weight. The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. Sophie's eyes went wide, her small face crumpling. "Ethan, not in front of—" "What not in front of our daughter? She should know what kind of mother she has. Unemployed, useless, can't even hold down a simple marketing job." He turned to Sophie. "Don't worry, princess. Grandma Carla and I will take care of you now." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood, the urge to tell him everything about the company, about the beach house in Key Largo, about the 6-figure contracts I'd been quietly managing nearly overwhelmed me, but I stayed silent. Let them think they'd won. Carla appeared in the doorway like a vulture sensing fresh meat. At 62, she maintained herself with religious devotion to Botox and designer clothing, but no amount of money could hide the ugliness in her smile. "Emma, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I've already called the locksmith. They'll be here at 3 o'clock sharp. I do hope you'll be gone by then." "This is my house too," I said quietly. "Was," Carla corrected. "Was your house. But since you can't contribute anymore, well," she shrugged, her tennis bracelet catching the afternoon sun. "Ethan needs a partner who can match his success, not drag him down." I watched my daughter's face, saw the confusion and hurt swirling in her brown eyes, my eyes. That's what killed me most. Not their betrayal, but what they were doing to her. "Sophie, baby, go pack your weekend bag," I said gently. "You're coming with Mommy for a few days." "She's staying here," Ethan cut in. "Court orders. Remember, joint custody means she stays in the family home, and since you're the one leaving—" The smugness in his voice made my skin crawl. They'd planned this. Every detail, every legal maneuver. They thought they'd covered every angle. "Fine," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "I'll see you this weekend. Sophie, I love you." "Mommy, don't go!" She broke free from Ethan's grip and ran to me, throwing her arms around my waist. "Please don't go!" I held her tight, memorizing the feeling, the smell of her strawberry shampoo. "It's just for a little while, baby. I promise." Carla's laugh echoed from the doorway. "A little while. Oh, Emma, you really don't understand. Do you, once the divorce goes through, once the court sees you can't even provide a stable home?" She didn't need to finish. The threat hung in the air like the thick Florida humidity. I kissed Sophie's forehead and gently untangled myself from her arms. As I got into my car, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. Tired eyes, stress lines that hadn't been there a year ago. They saw weakness, They saw defeat. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. As I drove away, Sophie's cries fading behind me, I allowed myself one moment of pure, crystalline fury. Then I reached for my phone and scrolled to a contact labeled Office Private Line. They wanted to play games. Fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail in their perfect plan. You should never underestimate a woman who learned to survive before she learned to trust. The locksmith might be coming at 3 o'clock. But their reckoning, that was already in motion. The coffee shop on Meridian Street had become my temporary refuge. Its worn leather chairs and flickering neon sign reading Sal's Place offered the anonymity I needed. I sat in the corner booth, watching steam rise from my untouched cappuccino, when Monica slid into the seat across from me. "Jesus, Emma, you look like hell," she said, then immediately winced. "Sorry, that came out wrong." Monica Davis had worked with me at Pinnacle Marketing for 3 years. We'd bonded over late-night presentations and terrible break-room coffee. She was one of the few people I'd trusted enough to stay in contact with after my sudden termination. "It's fine," I said, attempting a smile. "Hell is actually a pretty accurate description of my life right now." She leaned forward, her expression shifting from concern to something harder. "That's actually why I wanted to meet. Emma, there's something you need to know about why you were fired." My stomach tightened. HR said it was budget cuts, that they were eliminating positions across the board. Bullshit. Monica pulled out her phone, swiping through screens. Complete bullshit. I have a friend in HR, Teresa. Remember her? She told me something that made me sick. She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was an email thread. My hands trembled as I read. From Carla Winters to Patricia Hoffman, Director of Human Resources, subject concerns about Emma Carlisle. Patricia, as discussed in our phone conversation, I'm deeply concerned about my daughter-in-law's mental stability. As a concerned family member and a significant shareholder in several of Pinnacle's partner companies, I feel it's my duty to inform you of her increasingly erratic behavior. She's been paranoid, making wild accusations about family members, and we fear she may become a liability to your organization. The email went on, painting a picture of me as an unstable, vindictive woman on the verge of a breakdown. My vision blurred as I scrolled to the response. From Patricia Hoffman to Carla Winters, subject concerns about Emma Carlisle. Mrs. Winters, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Given your family's long-standing relationship with our partner organizations, we take these concerns very seriously. We'll handle this matter with appropriate discretion. There's more, Monica said quietly. Teresa found another email. From Ethan. I could barely breathe as I read my husband's message, sent just 2 days before my termination. He'd provided documentation of my supposed instability-twisted versions of normal disagreements, exaggerated accounts of my stress over Sophie's school issues, even a mention of the antidepressants I'd briefly taken after my father's death 2 years ago. They planned this, I whispered. They actually planned to destroy my career. That's not all. Monica glanced around the nearly empty coffee shop, then leaned closer. Remember those contracts you were always reviewing at home, the ones for your consulting work? I nodded, my mind racing. Carla's been asking around about them. Quietly, she contacted Lisa from accounting last week, trying to find out if you had any side businesses that might be considered conflicts of interest. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They hadn't just wanted me out of the house. They wanted everything. My job, my daughter, and they were hunting for my business assets too. Why, I asked, though I already knew the answer. Monica's expression was grim. Teresa overheard Carla on a call in the parking garage. She was talking about some beach property, saying once you were out of the picture, it would finally be accessible. My blood ran cold. The Key Largo house. I'd bought it through my company 2 years ago, a foreclosure that I'd renovated into a high-end vacation rental. The property was now worth 3 times what I'd paid, and the rental income was substantial, but it wasn't in my personal name, it was held by my LLC. Coastal Consulting Solutions. They don't know, I said, more to myself than Monica. They know something exists, but they don't have the details. Emma, you need a lawyer. A good one. This is conspiracy, defamation. No, I cut her off, my mind suddenly crystal clear. Not yet. Let them think they've won. Monica stared at me. Are you insane? They're destroying your life. They're trying to... I pulled out my own phone, opening my banking app. The balance in my business account remained untouched, healthy. But they made one crucial mistake. They assumed I was just Ethan's wife, just another suburban mom they could push around. What are you going to do? I thought about the papers locked in my office downtown, the one Ethan didn't know about, the contracts, the property deeds, the client list that included some of the most powerful people in South Florida. They want to play dirty. I met Monica's eyes. Then I'll show them what dirty really looks like. But first, I need you to do me a favor. Anything. Keep your ears open. Document everything, every conversation, every email, every whisper about me or my family. I stood, leaving cash on the table. They think I'm broken because I lost my corporate job. They have no idea that job was just my side hustle. As I walked back to my car, I felt the Florida sun on my face, but for the first time in days, its heat didn't suffocate me. Carla and Ethan had drawn first blood, convinced they'd mortally wounded me. They were about to learn that sometimes the prey you wound becomes the predator you fear. The text arrived while I was reviewing contracts in my hotel room. Carla wants to talk. 7 p.m. tonight. Don't be late. E. No, please. No pretense of civility. Just commands, as if I were a dog being summoned. I dressed carefully for the meeting, not in the designer clothes they expected, but in simple black slacks and a white blouse. Let them think I was struggling. Let them see what they wanted to see. Carla's mansion in the gated Coral Estates community was a monument to excess. Mediterranean-style architecture, imported Italian marble, a fountain that cost more than most people's cars. I'd always found it suffocating. Tonight, it felt like walking into a trap. The dining room was set like a stage. Carla sat at the head of the long mahogany table, Ethan to her right, and a man I recognized as Mr. Harding, their family lawyer, to her left. Papers were spread across the table like weapons. Emma, Carla said, gesturing to a chair at the far end. So good of you to come. The distance was intentional. Me alone at one end, them clustered in power at the other. I sat without comment. I'll cut to the chase, she continued, her manicured nails tapping against the table. We're all concerned about Sophie's well-being. A child needs stability, security things you simply can't provide right now. I'm her mother. Yes, well, Carla's smile was razor-sharp. Biology doesn't pay for private school, does it? Or medical insurance or a safe home environment? Mr. Harding cleared his throat, sliding a document down the table. Mrs. Carlyle, what we're proposing is quite generous, given the circumstances. Full custody to Mr. Carlyle, with supervised visitation rights for you once you've stabilized your situation. I picked up the document, scanning the legal language. They wanted everything custody, child support waived, and buried in the middle, a clause about full financial disclosure of all assets and business interests. There it was, their real goal. Additionally, Harding continued, there's the matter of marital assets. To expedite the divorce and ensure Sophie's immediate needs are met, we're proposing you waive any claims to the marital home, vehicles, and investment accounts. In exchange for, I asked, though the answer was obvious. We won't pursue the mental health angle in court, Ethan said, speaking for the first time. No testimony about your instability. No medical records subpoenaed. You walk away clean, start fresh. The threat hung heavy between us. They'd paint me as crazy, unfit, dangerous even, with Carla's connections and money. They might even make it stick. And if I don't sign, Carla leaned back, studying her wedding ring, a gaudy thing worth more than my supposed annual salary. Well, custody battles can be so damaging for children. All those evaluations, testimonies about Mommy's problems. Sophie's such a sensitive girl. My hands clenched under the table. They were threatening to traumatize my daughter to get what they wanted. I need time to review this, I said, keeping my voice steady. Of course, Harding said. We're not unreasonable. You have until Friday. 3 days should be sufficient. 3 days. They really thought they had me cornered. Ethan stood, moving to the wet bar in the corner. Can I get you something water? You look pale. I'm fine. You know, he said, pouring himself a scotch. This doesn't have to be ugly. Sign the papers. Emma, move on. Find a nice apartment somewhere. Maybe get a job at a small firm. Start over. Like you're starting over? I asked. With Jessica from your office. His hand paused for just a moment. Carla's eyes sharpened. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. The charges at the Ritz-Carlton, the jewelry store receipts, the weekend business trips to Miami. I smiled sadly. I'm many things, Ethan, but I'm not blind. You see, Carla interjected, paranoid delusions. This is exactly what we're talking about. I stood, collecting my purse. I'll review the documents. Emma, Carla called as I reached the door. One more thing. I heard you've been asking about consulting work, using our family name to open doors. That stops now. Any attempt to trade on the Carlyle reputation will be met with legal action. Our family name. As if I hadn't been a Carlyle for over a decade. As if I hadn't helped build Ethan's career while raising our daughter. Understood, I said. The drive back to my hotel was a blur. They thought they'd shown me their winning hand custody threats, financial destruction, social exile. They'd laid out their weapons and expected me to surrender. But sitting in that cold dining room, watching them savor their presumed victory, I'd noticed something crucial. The papers had focused on disclosed assets, the marital home, the cars, the known bank accounts. They were fishing. They knew I had something hidden, but not what or where. I pulled into the hotel parking lot and sat for a moment. Engine running. 3 days. 72 hours to decide whether to fight or fold. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Mommy, when are you coming home? Grandma says you're sick. Are you okay? My vision blurred with tears not of sadness, but of pure, righteous fury. They wanted to use my daughter against me. They wanted to paint me as unstable, strip me of everything, and cast me aside like trash. 3 days. That would be more than enough time to prepare their destruction. The call came at 11:43 p.m., jolting me from restless sleep. Olivia Martinez's name glowed on my phone screen, a former colleague from Pinnacle Marketing who'd moved to IT security 2 years ago. Emma, I'm sorry to call so late, but you need to see this immediately. Her voice was tight with urgency. Check your email, the encrypted one. I grabbed my laptop, hands shaking as I logged into my secure account. Olivia's message contained a single link and a warning. Download everything now. I'm deleting this in 1 hour. The files opened like Pandora's box. Email after email. A digital trail of conspiracy that made my stomach turn. From Ethan Carlyle to Carla Winters, subject Phase 2. Date 6 weeks ago. Mom. Lawyer confirms if E loses primary income source. Custody modification becomes much easier. Also discovered she's been moving money not sure where. Need to find out before we proceed with divorce filing. Jessica's brother works at her bank. Might be able to help. From Carla Winters to Ethan Carlyle. Subject Phase 2. Handle the employment situation. I'll work on the property search. That beach house has to be in her name somewhere. Once we have custody of Sophie, Emma will trade anything to see her. The property will be ours by Christmas. I scrolled through dozens more, each one more damning than the last. They'd been planning this for months. Every kind word, every family dinner, every moment I'd thought we were working through a rough patch, all of it had been a performance. But it was the final email that stopped my heart. From Jessica Reynolds to Ethan Carlisle. Subject tomorrow date. Yesterday. Baby, I can't wait until she's finally gone. The house will be perfect for my home office, and Sophie already likes me better anyway. Your mom promised to handle the bank situation. By Friday. She won't even be able to afford a lawyer. Attached was a PDF. My hands trembled as I opened it, a forged power of attorney document with my signature. Not a bad forgery, but I knew it was fake because I'd never signed it. It gave Ethan full control over all marital assets. Holy shit, I whispered. My phone rang. Olivia again. Did you see it? She asked. How did you... Jessica's an idiot. She used her work email for some of these. When she accessed the company server from home, she didn't realize our new security system logs everything. I was doing routine maintenance and... She paused. Emma, they're planning to clean out your accounts tomorrow morning. The bank opens at 9 a.m. I was already pulling on clothes, my mind racing. Olivia, I need those emails saved somewhere safe. Already done. I've uploaded everything to a secure cloud server. I'm sending you the access codes separately. Her voice softened. Emma, I'm so sorry. Nobody deserves this. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my hotel room, laptop glowing before me. They thought they'd won, thought they'd mapped out every move, calculated every angle. But they'd made one critical error. I opened another browser window and logged into my business banking portal. Coastal Consulting Solutions, LLC, balance $847,000. The Key Largo property deed, safely titled to the company. The investment portfolio I'd built over 5 years of late nights and careful planning. All of it untouched, all of it invisible to them because I'd learned long ago never to put all my eggs in one basket, especially not a basket shared with Ethan Carlisle. I pulled out a legal pad and began writing. Not the surrender they expected, but a battle plan. First, move the money. Tonight, before their forgery could do any damage. Second, contact my own lawyer. Not the family friend Ethan would expect, but Catherine Vaughn, the shark who'd handled my company formation and knew exactly how to protect assets. Third, document everything. Every email, every threat, every lie. Fourth, wait for them to make their move. Let them think their plan was working. My phone buzzed. Another text from Sophie. Daddy says you're not coming to my recital Friday. Is that true? Friday. The day they expected me to sign my life away. The day they thought they'd bury me. I texted back, I'll be there, baby. I promise. Because I would be, not as the broken woman they expected, but as the mother she deserved, the fighter they'd underestimated. I printed every email, every document, every piece of evidence. The hotel printer wheezed and complained, but page after page emerged, proof of conspiracy, proof of fraud, proof of the cruelty behind their perfect family facade. By 3 a.m., I had everything organized, bank accounts secured, lawyer contacted, evidence backed up in triplicate. They wanted to declare war fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail in their meticulous planning. I hadn't survived a broken childhood, built a business from nothing, and raised a daughter in their toxic shadows just to roll over and play dead now. The sun would rise in a few hours. They'd wake up confident in their victory, ready to execute their final move. They had no idea the real game was just beginning. The Portwell Community Center buzzed with the energy of 200 residents gathered for the monthly town meeting. I'd timed my arrival perfectly late enough to make an entrance, early enough to catch the public comment period. Carla held court near the podium, her circle of society friends hanging on every word. Ethan stood beside her, playing the role of devoted son and concerned father. I watched from the back as they performed their carefully rehearsed tragedy. It's just been so difficult, Carla said, loud enough for half the room to hear. Poor Sophie, having to watch her mother spiral like this, the instability, the paranoia. We're doing everything we can to protect her. Mrs. Patterson, the mayor's wife, patted Carla's hand sympathetically. You're so strong, dealing with all this. Family comes first, Carla replied, dabbing at dry eyes. Even when they're not well, we have to love them from a distance. My heels clicked against the linoleum floor as I walked down the center aisle. Conversations died in waves as people recognized me. The crazy woman, the failed wife, the unstable mother. Emma! Carla's voice pitched high with false surprise. What are you doing here? I smiled, setting my leather portfolio on the sign-in table. Exercising my civic duty. I believe we're in the public comment period. Mayor Harrison, clearly uncomfortable, checked his agenda. Well, yes, but... Wonderful! I moved to the podium, my heart steady despite the weight of 200 stairs. I have some documents the community should see. This is highly inappropriate. Ethan started, but Judge Willis, who served on the town council, raised a hand. Let her speak. Mr. Carlyle. Everyone gets their 3 minutes. I opened my portfolio, pulling out the first document. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the drama, but when prominent community members use their influence to destroy someone's life, I believe transparency is necessary. The projector screen behind me flickered to life I'd coordinated with Tom from IT, an old friend who owed me a favor. The first email appeared in 4-foot-tall letters. This, I said, is an email from my mother-in-law to my former employer, claiming I was mentally unstable. The result, I lost my job 2 weeks ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Carla's face went white. That's private correspondence, she shrieked. Actually, I continued, clicking to the next slide, when you use that correspondence to commit fraud, it becomes evidence. The forged power of attorney filled the screen. This document, bearing what appears to be my signature, was created to drain my bank accounts. Fortunately, forensic analysis proves it's fake. Judge Willis leaned forward, studying the projection. His expression darkened. I clicked again. Jessica's email about taking my house appeared. And here we see the real motive. My husband's mistress, already planning to move into my home once I'd been removed. The room erupted. Ethan lunged toward the podium, but 2 things happened simultaneously. Judge Willis stood, his commanding presence freezing Ethan mid-step, and Sheriff Davidson, who'd been attending the meeting, moved closer to the front. Mr. Carlyle, Judge Willis said quietly, I suggest you sit down. She's lying. Ethan's mask finally slipped, revealing the ugly truth beneath. She's bitter and vindictive and apparently in possession of significant evidence. Judge Willis interrupted. Mrs. Carlyle, do you have documentation supporting these claims? I handed him a thick folder. Complete email chains, forensic analysis of the forgery, and sworn affidavits from witnesses to various conversations. My attorney, Catherine Vaughn, has filed formal charges this morning. The mention of Catherine's name, the attorney who'd successfully prosecuted the largest fraud case in county history, sent another wave of whispers through the crowd. Carla pushed through the crowd, her perfect composure shattered. You ungrateful bitch, after everything we've done for you. What you've done? I turned to face her. You mean conspiracy to commit fraud? Defamation, attempted theft. She raised her hand to slap me, but Sheriff Davidson stepped between us. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back. This is ridiculous. Carla spun to face her society friends, seeking support, but they'd already begun to distance themselves, the social calculations clear on their faces. She's nobody, a nothing. I made her life possible. No, I said quietly, the microphone carrying my words through the silent room. You tried to take my life. My job, my daughter, my home. I pulled out the final document. What you didn't know is that I own Coastal Consulting Solutions, a company worth more than your son makes in 5 years. I own a property in Key Largo that generates 6 figures in rental income annually. I built a life you couldn't see because you were too busy looking down on me. The projection showed my company registration, bank statements, property deeds all legally obtained and properly documented. Shh, you want to know the ironic part? I looked directly at Ethan. I was going to share it all with you. The business, The beach house I thought we were building a future together. But you were too busy planning my destruction with your mother and your mistress to notice what we could have had." Judge Willis stood, his authority filling the room. "I think we've heard enough. Sheriff Davidson, I believe there are matters here requiring your attention. Mrs. Carlyle, I assume you've taken steps to protect your assets and your custody rights." "Yes, Your Honor. Everything is secured, and emergency custody papers were filed this morning." "Then I suggest," he looked pointedly at Carla and Ethan, "that Mr. Carlyle and Mrs. Winters seek legal counsel. Immediately." The room exploded into chaos. Reporters, because of course someone had called them, pushed forward with cameras and questions. Society matrons whispered behind manicured hands. Carla screamed about lawsuits and connections until Sheriff Davidson quietly informed her she needed to come to the station for questioning. As I gathered my documents, someone touched my shoulder. Mrs. Henderson, my nosy neighbor, stood there with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "I watched them throw your things out and I should have said something." Others approached, offering similar sentiments. Support I hadn't expected from a community I'd thought had written me off. But I only cared about one thing. I pulled out my phone and texted Catherine. "It's done. File everything." Sophie would be at her recital on Friday, and I would be there, not as the broken woman they'd tried to create, but as her mother, whole, strong, and finally free. The aftermath of the town meeting spread through Portwell like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew. The local news ran the story with barely concealed glee. Prominent family accused of fraud in custody battle. But Carla Winters didn't go down without a fight. She found me at the Starbucks on Main Street, where I was reviewing custody documents with Catherine. The coffee shop fell silent as she stormed in, her usually perfect hair disheveled, her designer suit wrinkled from what I assumed was a night at the sheriff's station. "You," she hissed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You've destroyed everything." Catherine started to stand, but I placed a hand on her arm. Let Carla perform. The more she revealed in public, the better. "I took you in," Carla continued, her voice rising. "Welcomed you into our family. Gave you a life you could never have achieved on your own. And this is how you repay us." By telling the truth, I kept my voice calm, aware of the phone's already recording. "By protecting myself from your conspiracy." She laughed, ugly and sharp. "Conspiracy, is that what you're calling it? We were trying to protect Sophie from a mother who hides money, keeps secrets, lives a double life. You mean a mother who built a business." I stood slowly. "Who invested wisely, who didn't put everything in her husband's name like a good little wife." The coffee shop patrons watched like it was dinner theater. Someone in the corner was definitely live streaming. Carla stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper meant to intimidate. "You think you've won. You have no idea what I'm capable of, the connections I have, the judges who owe me favors, the judges who are now under ethical review because of your bribes," Catherine interrupted smoothly. "Oh yes, Mrs. Winters, your emails were quite comprehensive. Judge Matthews, Judge Chen, that family court mediator you've been paying for years." Carla's face went from red to white. "You're lying." I pulled out my phone, showing her the screen. An email from her to Judge Matthews, discussing the usual arrangement for a favorable custody evaluation. "Screenshot," I said. "The FBI has the originals." "The FBI?" Her voice cracked. "Well, wire fraud is federal," Catherine explained. "Crossing state lines to hide assets, bribing judicial officials, conspiracy to commit fraud. You've been very busy. Mrs. Winters." That's when Ethan appeared, pushing through the door like a man possessed. His polo shirt was inside out, his hair unwashed, the golden boy finally tarnished. "Mom, stop talking," he said urgently. The lawyer said, "Shut up." Carla whirled on him. "This is your fault. If you'd controlled your wife properly, none of this would have happened." "Controlled," I laughed. There it is. The truth, finally. Ethan's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw something that might have been regret. Then his jaw hardened. You're destroying our daughter's life. She'll never forgive you for this. For protecting her from criminals. I shook my head. Sophie deserves better than a father who lies and a grandmother who steals. We're her family, Carla shrieked. No, I said firmly. Family doesn't frame you for mental illness. Family doesn't forge documents. Family doesn't try to steal your life's work. Judge Willis entered the coffee shop then, off-duty but still commanding respect. The timing wasn't coincidental. Catherine had texted him when Carla arrived. Mrs. Winters, Mr. Carlyle, he nodded. I believe you both have restraining orders that prohibit approaching Mrs. Carlyle. Carla's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The restraining orders had been issued that morning, emergency measures based on the evidence of conspiracy and fraud. This is harassment, Ethan tried. She's in a public place. Within 50 feet of Mrs. Carlyle, which violates the order. Judge Willis pulled out his phone. Shall I call Sheriff Davidson, or will you leave voluntarily? The silence stretched taut. Finally, Carla grabbed Ethan's arm. This isn't over, she spat at me. I'll spend every penny I have to bury you. You mean the pennies that aren't frozen by federal investigation? Catherine smiled sweetly. Good luck with that. They left, Carla's heels clicking furiously against the floor. The coffee shop erupted in whispers the moment the door closed. Judge Willis approached our table. Mrs. Carlyle, I want you to know the Judicial Review Board is taking this very seriously. Any judgments involving the Winters family are being re-examined. Thank you, Your Honor. He leaned closer. Off the record, I never liked that woman. Too much money, too little conscience. He straightened. The emergency custody hearing is set for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Given the circumstances, I expect it to go in your favor. After he left, Catherine and I sat in silence for a moment. The weight of what had just happened, what was still happening, settled over me. She meant it, Catherine said quietly, about spending everything to fight you. I know. I stared at my cold coffee. But she just confessed to judicial bribery in front of 20 witnesses and at least 3 recording phones. She can't buy her way out of that. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Carlyle, this is Principal Morrison. Could you come to the school? Sophie is asking for you. My heart clenched. Through all of this, my daughter was what mattered most. Go, Catherine said, reading my face. I'll file the harassment charges from today. We'll add it to the pile. I gathered my things, pausing at the door. Carla's words echoed. This isn't over. No, it wasn't. But the war she'd started was no longer hers to control. She'd thought she was hunting a mouse, someone small and weak she could crush. Instead, she'd awakened a lioness protecting her cub. And everyone knows how that story ends. The courtroom smelled of old wood and bitter coffee. I sat beside Catherine, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. Across the aisle, Ethan whispered furiously with his lawyer while Carla sat rigid, her mask of superiority cracking at the edges. Judge Patricia Thornton presided, brought in from another county to avoid any taint of Carla's influence. She was known for being tough but fair, especially in custody cases. We're here for the emergency custody hearing in the matter of Carlyle versus Carlyle, Judge Thornton began. I've reviewed the extensive documentation provided. Mr. Carlyle, your attorney may begin. Ethan's lawyer, a slick man named Davidson, stood. Your Honor, we maintain that Mrs. Emma Carlyle is unstable and unfit for custody. She recently lost her job, has no permanent residence, and has exhibited paranoid behavior. Objection, Catherine interrupted smoothly. Counsel is presenting false information. Mrs. Carlyle owns a successful consulting firm and substantial real estate. I'll allow Mrs. Carlyle to present evidence. Judge Thornton ruled. Catherine stood, clicking a remote. The courtroom screen displayed my bank statements, property deeds, and business registration. Your Honor, my client owns Coastal Consulting Solutions, with annual revenues exceeding $600,000. She owns a vacation property in Key Largo valued at $1.2 million. She was terminated from Pinnacle Marketing only after the defendants conspired to defame her character. That's ridiculous, Davidson started. Is it? Catherine clicked again. The forged power of attorney appeared. This document, bearing a forged signature, was created to steal my client's assets. Forensic analysis confirms it's fake. The FBI is currently investigating. Judge Thornton's expression darkened. Mr. Davidson, are you aware of this alleged forgery? Davidson's face flushed. I was not informed. Furthermore, Catherine continued, we have evidence of judicial bribery. The emails between Carla and various judges filled the screen. Mrs. Winters attempted to purchase favorable custody rulings. Your Honor, Carla shot to her feet. This is character assassination. Sit down. Mrs. Winters, Judge Thornton commanded. You're not a party to this custody matter. I'm the child's grandmother, who conspired to remove her mother through illegal means. Judge Thornton's voice could have frozen fire. One more outburst and you'll be removed. Catherine presented evidence for the next hour. Email after email. The conspiracy to get me fired. The plans to steal my property. The forged documents. Ethan's affair with Jessica, including receipts showing he'd used marital funds for hotels and jewelry. Then came my turn to testify. Mrs. Carlyle, Judge Thornton asked, what are your current living arrangements? I've leased a 4-bedroom house in the Riverside School District, Your Honor. Sophie's school is a 5-minute walk. I've maintained her room exactly as she likes it, with her books, her art supplies, everything familiar. And your financial situation? Stable and documented. My consulting firm has contracts through next year. The Key Largo property generates $8,000 monthly in rental income. I have comprehensive health insurance and have already established a college fund for Sophie. Well, what about the allegations of mental instability? I met her gaze directly. Those allegations were fabricated as part of the conspiracy to gain custody. I underwent voluntary psychological evaluation last week. Dr. Marie Foster found no evidence of any mental health issues that would impact my parenting. Catherine submitted Dr. Foster's report. Mr. Carlyle? Judge Thornton turned to Ethan. Do you have evidence to refute any of this? Davidson scrambled. My client is a devoted father who simply wants what's best. I asked for evidence, not platitudes. Well, Mrs. Carlyle hid assets from the marriage. Assets acquired through her separate business. Judge Thornton raised an eyebrow. That's not hiding, Mr. Davidson. That's smart financial planning. She shuffled papers, then looked up. I also have a letter here from Sophie's school counselor, expressing concern about recent changes in the child's behavior while in Mr. Carlyle's care. Increased anxiety, declining grades, emotional withdrawal. She looked at Ethan. Can you explain this? Ethan's mouth opened and closed. She's upset about the divorce, which you initiated through conspiracy and fraud. Judge Thornton's voice was ice. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Catherine called Principal Morrison to testify via video link. Sophie came to my office 3 times last week, the principal testified. She was crying, saying her grandmother told her that her mother was sick and dangerous. The child was terrified she'd never see her mother again. We've had to involve our school psychologist. I bit my lip to keep from crying. They'd tortured my baby with their lies. Judge Thornton had heard enough. I'm ready to rule. The evidence presented shows a deliberate, calculated attempt to alienate a child from her mother through illegal means. Mr. Carlyle, you've shown shocking disregard for your daughter's well-being in pursuit of financial gain. She turned to me. Mrs. Carlyle, I'm granting you full physical and legal custody of Sophie Carlyle, effective immediately. Mr. Carlyle, you'll have supervised visitation every other Saturday, pending completion of a parenting class and therapy. "This is outrageous!" Ethan exploded. "She can't—" Furthermore, Judge Thornton continued, given the evidence of criminal conspiracy, I'm referring this entire matter to the district attorney, Mr. Carlisle, Mrs. Winters. I suggest you focus less on custody and more on criminal defense. The gavel came down with finality. Carla lunged toward me, but the bailiff intercepted her. "You poisonous bitch! You've destroyed everything our family name, our reputation." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed it yourself. I just refused to be your victim." As they were escorted out, Carla screaming threats. Ethan finally silent, Catherine squeezed my shoulder. "It's over. You won." But it wasn't quite over. Not yet. Outside the courthouse, Sophie waited with her school counselor. When she saw me, she broke free and ran, launching herself into my arms. "Mommy, Ms. Johnson said I get to go home with you. Really home." "Really home, baby," I whispered into her hair. "No one's taking you away again." As I carried my daughter to the car, I saw Ethan and Carla being led to separate police vehicles, local news cameras capturing every moment. Their empire of lies, built on cruelty and greed, had crumbled in a single afternoon. They'd wanted war. They'd gotten justice instead. And Sophie and I. We'd gotten our lives back. The courthouse steps were chaos. Reporters pushed forward with microphones and cameras, their questions overlapping into white noise. Behind me, I could hear Carla's shrieks as officers guided her into the patrol car, her perfectly styled world finally, utterly shattered. "Mrs. Carlisle, how does it feel to win custody? Emma, will you be pressing additional charges? Is it true the FBI is investigating?" I held Sophie tighter, shielding her from the cameras. Catherine stepped forward, ever the professional. "My client will not be making statements at this time. The evidence speaks for itself." But I stopped at the bottom of the steps, turning back. Maybe it was petty. Maybe it was necessary. Either way, I needed to say it. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying over the noise, "I have one thing to say." The crowd quieted, cameras focusing. I looked directly at where Ethan stood in handcuffs, his golden boy image forever tarnished. Then at Carla, mascara streaming down her face as reality finally hit. "You took everything from me," I said, my voice steady. "My job, my home, my security. You tried to take my daughter. You called me worthless, dead weight, a failure." I adjusted Sophie on my hip, drawing strength from her small arms around my neck. "But you failed to understand something fundamental. You can't destroy someone who's already survived worse and rebuilt herself. You can't break someone who finds strength in protecting what matters most. You looked at me and saw an easy target, a nobody, as you so eloquently put it, Mrs. Winters." Carla's face contorted with rage even as the officer guided her into the vehicle. But I was never nobody. I was a mother, a survivor, a builder of my own destiny. And while you schemed and plotted, I was documenting every move, protecting every asset, preparing for this exact moment. I turned to the cameras, knowing this would play on every local channel tonight. "You lost everything not because I'm vindictive or bitter. You lost because you confused kindness with weakness, because you thought money and connections could override truth and justice, because you underestimated the power of a mother's love and a woman's determination." Sophie lifted her head from my shoulder. "Mommy, can we go home now?" "Yes, baby, we can go home." As I walked to my car, I heard Ethan call out one last time, Emma, wait, we can work this out." I didn't turn around. There was nothing left to say. The drive to our new house was quiet, except for Sophie's occasional questions. Would her room really be the same? Could she still go to her school? Would I have to leave again? "Never," I promised her. "I'm never leaving you again." That evening, as Sophie played in her perfectly recreated room, I stood on the back porch of our rental house. It wasn't as grand as the home I'd shared with Ethan, but it was ours, clean, honest, free from the poison of the Carlisle family. My phone buzzed. A text from Monica. Saw the news. You're a badass. Drinks when you're ready. Another from Olivia. FBI served warrants at Pinnacle today. Carla's connections are running scared. And one from Catherine. DA says fraud charges are solid. They're looking at serious time. I deleted them all. Tomorrow would be for lawyers and healing and rebuilding. Tonight was for something else. Mommy. Sophie appeared beside me, already in her pajamas. Are you sad? I knelt down to her level. No, baby. I'm not sad. But you were crying in the car? Those were different tears, relief, joy. We're free now. Sophie, really, truly free. She considered this with 9-year-old wisdom. Free from Daddy and Grandma being mean. Free from anyone who tries to hurt us or separate us ever again. Good, she said firmly. I didn't like when they said mean things about you. You're the best mommy. As I tucked her into bed, she asked one more question. Mommy, what happens to Daddy and Grandma now? I chose my words carefully. They have to face consequences for the choices they made. Just like when you make bad choices, there are consequences, but much more serious. Will I still see Daddy? When the judge says it's okay, and when someone's there to make sure you're safe. But that's not for a while. She nodded, accepting this with the resilience children possess when they feel secure. Okay, I love you. Mommy. I love you too, sweetheart, more than all the stars. Later, alone in my own room, I finally allowed myself to fully process what had happened. They'd wanted to destroy me. Instead, they'd destroyed themselves. Every cruel word, every calculated betrayal, every moment they'd savored my pain, it had all led to their own downfall. The beach house in Key Largo waited. My business thrived. My daughter slept safely down the hall. And somewhere across town, Ethan and Carla faced the ruins of their own making. They'd called me dead weight, worthless, nobody. But I was Emma Carlisle, not the name they'd tried to strip from me, but the woman who'd earned it through fire and emerged stronger. I was a mother, a survivor, a force they'd foolishly underestimated. And I was finally, completely, irrevocably free. The war was over. I hadn't just survived, I'd won. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives mean everything to me, and I read every single comment. Until next time, remember you're stronger than those who try to break you.